Hey y'all, Christina with Christy Lynn outside, coming to you from Central Louisiana. It is mid-May and the garden is thriving. We just got done with a full week of rainy weather, so the garden actually is a pretty much of a mess right now. But I figured I would bring you on a mid-May tour and show you what's happening. So let's get started. So I'll start here on the west side of the garden under the arch trellises where the star of the show is this week and the last couple weeks actually, and that is the blackberries. It doesn't even matter where I start actually. Look at all of these blackberries. We have been picking at least 2 quarts. Look at all of these. We've been picking at least 2 quarts of blackberries every other day for the last 2 to 3 weeks. I've already made blackberry cobbler. I've already put 3 pounds of blackberries in the freezer, and I think blackberry jelly is probably next on the list. They are more than making up for the lack of harvest last year, and even still making new blooms. So this year the blackberry harvest is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna have more than enough to share with the neighbors and family and friends. And you can see all of these new primocanes jutting into the walkway. I'm gonna have to tie those up to the trellis. I am more than happy with my blackberries this year. I can't say how happy I am with them. This bed is where I had butter crunch lettuce that I harvested all of these lettuces before they bolted. So there are a couple blank spaces, but I have corbaci peppers and Jimmy Nardello peppers that are doing very well. There's a little bit of what looks to be flea beetle damage on these leaves, but I'm okay with that as long as it doesn't get out of hand. Right here where my butter crunch lettuce was planted, I planted some pumpkins, which I'm just gonna let ramble around all over the place. I guess along this fence line maybe. This is the new moon pumpkin, I believe. It's gonna be like a light colored pumpkin, a white. I have chives here. These are regular common chives. And I have calendula that are finally gonna bloom. I've never had a calendula bloom, and they're loving this west side of the garden, and I think I'm finally gonna see some beautiful orange flowers from the calendula. This is the Orange King calendula, so they're gonna be beautiful. I have a sunflower that's about to bloom, it looks like. It's working on it. And then in this garden, I have a massive sun gold cherry tomato. Massive. I mean, it's about halfway up the arch trellis already. And we have been harvesting sweet little sun gold cherry tomatoes for the last couple weeks so far. There were red onions in here. I harvested those. I also have some which looks like it really suffered in the rain. This is chamomile that looks like I don't think it liked the rain very much, but we're gonna give it some time to recover. And there's 3 of them, and they all 3 look pretty sad, but that's okay. I'm just gonna give them some time. On the sides of this tomato plant, I have lemon cucumber on this side. I don't think I have any baby cucumbers yet, but I have tons of little male blossoms. So the cucumbers are not too far from showing up. In fact, actually, hey, there's one. Maybe it got pollinated. We'll see. And then on the other side, I have another slicer cucumber, I believe. Yeah, this is the Hosinator slicer. And I actually do have let's see if I can find it. I do have a small, partially pollinated cucumber. So that's good. And there's plenty of blooms on this one too. There are also some, I think these are Orient Wonder beans growing up in between the cucumbers and the tomatoes. They're just kind of twining around the trellis, and see, they're twining around the trellis and around the tomato wherever they can get in. But maybe we'll have some beans. If not, it'll help fixate some nitrogen in this garden bed. So either way, it's a win. Also, to follow the red onions in this bed, I planted some seeds on each side of okra. In, I think, 3 of these beds, I planted some okra. I planted spineless, Clemson spineless, Star of David, and Alabama red. I think in this garden is the Alabama red, and in that next garden is the Star of David, and in the next garden, which looks pretty full right now, but it's about to be taken care of, is the Clemson spineless. This next bed is another massive sun gold tomato that is, it's going all over the place. I can't even contain it anymore. But it's going up the trellis, it's going out the trellis, and actually you can see right there, there's a rattlesnake bean that's just kind of hanging out, waiting to latch onto something. So I have rattlesnake beans and a sun gold tomato in here. I did have some sweet peas, but those have succumbed to the heat and are not in here. I also had some red onions that I harvested, and this is the Star of David okra bed now. On each side I put a Star of David okra. Chamomile is not looking as bad as the other bed, but it's still a little, I think it's a little waterlogged. And they're still here though, so we're gonna give them time. Lots of baby sun gold tomatoes. One that's turning yellow right there. Love it. This bed is an absolute mess, and I've left it this way on purpose because these are butter crunch lettuces that have bolted, and I am trying to let them go to seed so I can collect some lettuce seeds. Never had harvested lettuce seeds before, so this will be interesting, but I just wanted to try, so there's that. I also have Leisure red peppers, and let's see if I can find choricharito and Lasia red peppers in the middle of this mix here. And when I was digging around, I found one big choricharito. I can't even get it out of this lettuce mess. I don't want to break it. Anyway, let's see if you can see it. One big choricharito pepper. So I'm excited about that. The Lasia peppers are blooming, but I don't have any. Oh, wait, there's a little one. Yeah. And this is where I planted the Clemson spineless okra. One right there and one right there. And so once these lettuces, look, there's going to be so many. I'm probably not going to keep all of these seeds, but once these lettuces finally go to seed, then I will clean them out of this bed and compost them, and then the okra will probably be up and going by then. Also in here I have some sunset buff calendula that are also about to bloom. So excited about that. I did stick a rosemary. I stuck one little rosemary in there, and that looks like it rooted and is gonna survive. And then in here I have a garlic chive. So it's just like a random spattering of different plants, but I love it. This 4x8 bed is a mixture of wins and losses. It is full to the brim with plants. This is originally my asparagus bed, and you can't even see the asparagus because the random cherry tomatoes that I planted along the edges of this bed have completely taken over. You can see the ferns on the inside there a little bit. Yeah, there's asparagus in there. There's also more tomatoes in there in the middle. I don't know what I was thinking, but it's doing really well. Now the losses that I had was I really did my poor strawberries a disservice by putting them in this bed. My original plan was to harvest the asparagus and let the strawberries bloom and form, and then harvest the strawberries and then let the asparagus fern out. Well, that did not work out to my liking. The asparagus were not quite big enough for me, so I decided to give them another year. I only harvested a few stalks of asparagus, and then they just completely exploded and shaded out my strawberries, and my poor little strawberries are trapped in the middle of all that mess. So in the fall, when I cut the asparagus down for the winter, I'm going to transplant these strawberries into another bed and give them a new lease on life. But the cherry tomatoes on the edge of this bed all the way around, you can see all the way around, different kinds. I have Tommy Toe, I have Red Torch, I have Sun Gold, I have Black Cherry, and on the ends I have Red Snapper and Haussinator. This is a Red Snapper, if you can see it. Red Snapper and Haussinator determinate tomatoes. So the tomatoes are really enjoying this setup. And of course, fire ants that I am fighting tooth and nail. But I mean, it's a jungle. This bed is a complete jungle, and I'm not too upset about it at all. Even with all of the rain, there is minimal blight in this bed. I am trimming yellow branches as I go. So you see down here, I trim them and throw them down, and then I pick them up and get rid of them. But there's really not, knock on wood, there's really not that much disease in this bed as crowded as it is. And we're constantly starting to get tomatoes. Oh yes, there's a Tommy Toe tomato in there somewhere. The Tommy Toe turning red in there. So it's a win, I think. I just really sad about my poor strawberries, because even when I find a I find a strawberry that looks great and it's taken over by snails and slugs and fruit flies by the time I even get to it. So the strawberries, I'm gonna have to apologize to them in the fall and show them a new home. Moving east, this second 4x8 bed looks like it's not doing well, but in reality it is ready for harvest. I have some Yukon Gold potatoes in here and some Norland Red potatoes in here, and they have started dying back. They actually have been started dying back, and I need to try to harvest these sometime this week. My problem is that it is overrun by fire ants, and I had to resort to a bait because all of the natural remedies have done nothing. And you can see they are, I mean, I've treated it twice with bait already and they are still all over. I am not digging in these beds until the ants are gone. Fire ants are next to the squash vine borer in my mind, like one of my worst enemies in the garden. So when the fire ants are gone, if there's any potatoes left to harvest, if they haven't eaten them all, I don't know if ants eat potatoes, but I imagine that's why they're running rampant in this garden. I will harvest what I can out of it, and I will come back in with some zucchini and some flowers, and then the squash vine borer will come. So I'm just asking for trouble, I guess. But on the edge here, I have, these are Alabama black eye limas on a trellis, and you can see it's just green garden stakes that I clipped together and ran twine in a grid pattern, and those will stay until they die off, but they are starting to flower, so they're going to start producing beans. And on the other side of this bed, I will do some Christmas pole limas. The one dill that I have is going to seed. I'm going to leave that here and let it go to seed. And the cilantro has gone to seed. So I will harvest as many seeds from this as I can and take that out as well. There is garlic. I don't know if I'm going to harvest the garlic or if I'm just going to leave it and let it do its thing and try to ward off all the pests. I don't know. We'll see when I start digging around in here, if I decide to move it or leave it or harvest it or what. The parsley is definitely staying. I have some curled parsley. It looks like this one actually looks like it's about to bolt and produce seed, which is fine with me because I have harvested and dried a ton of this parsley, and it has served me well. The flat leaf parsley is newer than the curled leaf parsley, and that will stay. I had that one bachelor button that survived from the fall, and it is blooming like crazy. I love it, but I think it's kind of on its last leg as well. a side note, if you ever thought that cutting off your brassicas in the spring at soil level would get rid of them, you're wrong. This is a collard green that I cut down at soil level. I cut it down and thought it was gonna just decompose in the soil, and it came back in the middle of my potatoes. And a kale, cut that kale down and it came right back too. My garlic has seen better days, y'all. It is yellowing and turning brown, and this started, I guess, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I cleaned up a lot of the dead and browning leaves from the bottom. And when I was doing that, I noticed that it was overrun by snails and slugs. So I treated it with Sluggo, but I think I caught it too late, and I don't think they're gonna make it. So I may be harvesting this garlic early. We'll see. But in the middle here, I had mentioned in another video that I had some red onions in here that weren't looking too happy. And they're very small, but they're still usable. I can actually pull them up and transplant them somewhere else and just kind of let them go. And they can be a pest deterrent for me somewhere else in the garden, somewhere where it's a little more sunny. So I think I'll take all of these and I will give them a new home. In this bed, I have a ton of celery and some DeRussi lettuce that is going to seed. We'll let that go to seed. I loved the DeRussi lettuce, so I will be super excited to have some seeds from that. I also have a couple Pablo lettuce that are bolting that I'll try to let them go to seed as well. But look at these beautiful purple cabbages and these green acre cabbages. This one is ready to harvest. I didn't think that any of these would head up, actually, because it's really warm, but these are somewhat shaded in this area. They're surrounded by celery and garlic neighboring it, and I attribute that to the lack of pest damage here. There's very, very little pest damage. There's a little bit here and here, but all in all, they look great. The celery has really done a great job. Look, attracting aphids. Look at that. So that's it. That's a testimony there that the celery is taking care of my cabbages. And I'm harvesting, I mean, these are very small stalks, but they still taste amazing. These cabbages are also doing fairly well. Minimal pest damage, not as much heading. There's a couple very small tight heads that I can harvest. There's one there, there's one there, a tiny one here. This one didn't really head up, but I can still use all of these leaves for cabbage rolls, for coleslaw, and anything. You can use the cabbage leaves as much as you can use the head. It's just not as much. Now the big leaves, though, a lot of these are dried and crispy, but these big leaves will make amazing cabbage rolls. So, and on the edges here, I still have a few little carrots that are growing. Carrots are good pest deterrents as well. And my grandson and my daughter love coming in and picking out random carrots. Let's see if I have any that are big enough to pick. Oh, there's a tiny one. They will come in and just pick these tiny little carrots and eat them, brush them off and eat them straight out of the garden. And that's what I planted them for. And I'll be planting many, many more carrots just for them. These are my determinate tomatoes and my peppers. You can't even really see the peppers very much because they're kind of shaded in amongst these determinate tomatoes. But tell me why these determinate tomatoes are taller than my indeterminates at this point. That I think is like 7 feet tall. I looked it up, and determinate, these variety, the Floridade and the Marglobe and the Homestead, can actually get up to 6 feet tall. I think these have surpassed that though. I did not expect that. I have been I've been adding on to my trellis with these couplings here. I've been adding on to my trellis just higher and higher until I just can't reach it anymore. And yeah, there are tomatoes even at the top, at the very top. So many tomatoes. Here's one that's starting to blush. This is a Floridade. They're small little 5-ounce tomatoes. In here is this is a Marglobe. It's a slightly larger. I have one Principe Borghese that survived. That is supposed to have very hardy, storage capable tomatoes. I'm not going to store them though. I'm going to eat them. And in between here you can see the bell peppers. The bell peppers are, I think they're loving it. They're not loving it quite as much. They could probably use a little more sun. They do have some flea beetle damage, but they're still producing. So I can't complain about that. And you can see all the way on the other side there is another bell pepper. There is one there. So they're doing fairly well. I have celery on the corners. Each corner is, well, 3 out of 4 of the corners is celery. Now this is a different type of celery. I can't remember which one it is. But the stalks are slightly larger, like a regular celery. And then I have a couple arugula, one arugula that is actually going to seed now. Here on the other side of the determinate tomato bed is some Homestead tomatoes. This one, that's really interesting looking. The Homestead tomatoes are I guess a medium size slicer. There's a couple in there. Really having to fish through the leaves. Now we do have some yellowing of the leaves, some early blight. And they start at the bottom, honestly. And I think the rains have really done a number to them. So I'm just come through and I will prune off the yellowing stems and let the rest go. Determinate tomatoes, you do not prune the suckers because that's where you're going to get all of your harvest from. So you just let all those suckers go. And obviously I have let them go because they are humongous. This is my indeterminate tomato bed, and I'm not as thrilled with this one as I had hoped to be. 2 out of 4 of these have not set any fruit yet, and in fact they're blooming. I have a delicious tomato and this is my Big Zac. This is a sucker off of my Big Zac. My Big Zac especially is blooming, but then dropping the blooms. Like this, you can see it just turns yellow and drops. And I'm not sure what's causing that. I tried to look it up. It says it's mostly stress, but look at that. I'm so sad about that because this is my tomato challenge plant, and I have gotten nothing from it. Nothing but blopping dropping blooms. But it's not just the Big Zac. It is a delicious tomato as well that's doing the same thing. I've gotten more early blight from my indeterminate tomatoes than anything else. And you can see here on the ground, lots of yellowing leaves. I have lots of companion plants in here with these. I have lettuces, carrots, celery. I have bunching onions in here with them, and they are just not happy, and I don't know how to make them happy. I've fertilized them. I have given them Pro-Cal. I don't know what to do. Now the two that are producing are doing very well, which has got me very confused, because these are two delicious tomatoes that are producing massive fruits. I mean, check those out. They are, I should have entered my delicious tomato in the tomato challenge, because I think that's the only beefsteaks that I'm gonna get. Look at these, there's two of these on here. Big, delicious looking, delicious tomatoes. And like I said, I have celery, and I'm loving how all the celery is doing. Celery on each corner. I have some bronze beauty lettuce that is bolting and gonna go to seed. I have some devil's ear lettuce here that's bolting and gonna go to seed. I'm gonna let these go to seed because I really enjoyed these lettuces. I have a couple little Danvers carrots that survived the animal that decided to dig them up and poop in them. So there's that. And in the middle here, I have some Ishikura bunching onions. And on the other side, let's see. On the other side, I have some more carrots. I have some Merlot lettuce and some Lunix lettuce that is bolting, and I'm gonna let go to seed. And of course, more celery. Now these celery greens, I think you can use the greens as well. You can dry the greens and make celery salt out of them, I think. I'm gonna have to look that up, because last time I picked some celery, I had all these small stalks that I chopped up and put in the freezer, but then I had a ton of greens left over. So maybe I will dry some celery greens and make a celery salt out of that. In this bed, I have a ton of little things. I have some lime basil on each corner and a little dill that I planted that I hope will survive. I have a broadleaf sage that was not doing well with the onions in this bed, but since I harvested the onions, the sage has perked up tremendously. So hopefully that will start doing much better. Another lime basil. Now, among the basils, I have found that the lime basil bolts and flowers much more quickly than any of my basils, which is fine. I'll probably let it, I've been picking off the flowers, which has led to it bushing out this huge. And once it bushes out a little more, I think I'll just let it flower, because it smells amazing and it draws in the pollinators. On the sides though, I have some poblano peppers on this side. I have some red Lasia peppers on this side, and some burgundy bush beans in the middle here. These burgundy bush beans are a placeholder for some, I think I'm coming in with tomatoes over here for the fall. But in the meantime, we're gonna have some bush beans producing in here and fixing some nitrogen in this garden, so that hopefully the tomatoes will thrive. On the side though, I have a little surprise cantaloupe. So I have a couple cantaloupe plants here that I'm just gonna let spill over the side and ramble along the walkways, and we'll see how that goes. And then this celery, of course, is spilling over from the corner of that tomato bed. These 3 beds are super sad, but that's okay. I expected this. These are the brand new beds that I did this year, and I started off with cheap topsoil and cheap compost, so I expected some stunted production, and it hasn't disappointed me in that for sure. All of this light green, even though I have just sprinkled on, generously sprinkled lots of fertilizer. These are beans. Beans are supposed to do great in poor soil, but even the bush beans are not happy. So I'm just gonna keep babying these beds and letting them do their thing, and maybe next year they will do a lot better. But in between all of these bush beans that I planted here to try to increase the nitrogen availability, I have in this bed I have sweet potatoes, and some of them are doing well, like this one. Some of them are doing not so well, like this one. But I think they'll catch on. Like, this one is doing fine. There's just a little bit of pest damage. There's a little bit of weed. This is from, I think, the elm tree behind us. Sprinkled, like, it dropped a ton of seeds in my garden, and I just have so many of these popping up everywhere. Like, look at all that. So I do have some weeding to do in here. I do desperately need to mulch in these 3 beds, so I will be doing that eventually. And despite the torrential rains that we got last week, there's so many dry, brittle leaves on these beans. But despite all that, they are still blooming. So we may get some production out of them after all. We'll see. This bed has some radicchio that has gone nowhere. Some squashes that are very slow to grow. I did put some marigolds in here. Now you can compare the celery that I've been showing you throughout the garden as compared to this poor little guy, same age. Yeah, that's what I'm dealing with in these gardens. But I expected it. I didn't start with any top-notch soil, so that's what I get. So I may or may not get some zucchinis or squashes out of here. I will get some beans, I think. It won't be the best harvest. These are some Royal Burgundy beans. I have, I think these are Cantare beans. Oh, and look, the fire ants are coming on. So I'm gonna have to treat this bed too. Yay. This bed is more green beans, and in between all the poor little looking green beans, I have eggplants. I have several different kinds of eggplant. Matoyo, Casper. I have some manganji peppers, and I see a bloom. So that looks good, that's promising. I have some poblano peppers. I have some, let's see, on this side, I have some paprika peppers. Oh, the paprika peppers are tiny. I don't know. I'm not gonna give up on them though. I have Palermo eggplants, and I have Little Fingers eggplants. Now they're gonna be okay. I'm just gonna say that. I have pimento peppers also. All of these are very small. Very small. Now that eggplant looks decent. I might get, oh yeah, there's a little bloom there. So I'm just gonna be good to these and feed them and water them, and we'll see. Now my containers on the east side of the garden here are doing amazing. This one has a fig tree, some peppermint, some alyssum, and one rogue sunflower. And I think the biodiversity in these containers is what is lending to the figs doing so well. I don't have any baby figs yet that I can see, but they have come back from nothing and are doing really well. You can see this fig is really bushing out, and the peppermint is, I mean, I've already harvested peppermint from this like 3 times. It's doing amazing. In here I have my banana shrub, which is just an ornamental tree that really is coming back from death from the winter. Also, I have an alyssum here. I can't remember which type of alyssum it is, but this one is more of a succulent type. It's got really beautiful silver foliage. I can't wait for it to start blooming. And on the back side here, I planted a couple marigolds and a couple eucalyptus. Now the eucalyptus are surviving well, and I think I'm gonna transplant these. I have this one here and this one here, and I think I'm going to transplant those into their own pot eventually, because they will turn into nice big bushes, I think. In this container I have a bunch of carrots that have been consistently harvested by my girls and by my grandson. I have a sweet dumpling squash, which that's what the sweet dumpling squash will look like. I have that one, and then I planted a couple seeds for another one right here. I'm gonna let those spill out the edge, and in the middle on the trellis here I planted some seeds for blue butterfly peas, and those will grow up this trellis and produce some beautiful blue blooms that you can make tea out of. This has been the container that I just threw all my random things in. I just pulled out a couple onions that I had in there for over a year, and I'll put up a picture of what happens when you just leave onions in a container for more than a year. It surprised me. I pulled it up out of the ground because all I could see was the greens. I pulled them up out of the ground, and this is what I found. I have 2 Napa cabbages that are, they're doing fair. This one is finally starting to head up a little bit, but there is some pest damage on it. I'm just gonna let them go, and if I can get any edible greens out of them, I will definitely use them. If not, I mean, they can go into the compost, that's okay. I have some more of that beautiful alyssum, a couple on each side. So they're really slow grow. These are much more slow growing, and they just are so cute. They look like little succulents. I have one more random sunflower that's about to bloom in the middle of this pot. I planted a ton of sunflowers, and only a couple of them actually came up. I think the rest of them got eaten by snails and slugs. But also in this bed, I planted some seeds for some Goldilocks squash. And those bush, they do not trail. So I'll have like 2 or 3 in here after this cabbage is gone. I'll have 2 or 3 Goldilocks bush squash in this container. This container is where I had some sweet peas going up this trellis. Those succumbed to the heat, and I took them out and I planted some scarlet runner beans, which only two out of the 5 scarlet runners came up. So because of that, I went ahead and seeded some Christmas pole lima beans in as well. So I'll have some Christmas pole lima beans popping up eventually. And I have 3 small wonder spaghetti squash. And you can see I have some blooms already. This one is trailing. It's a really prickly, you can see it's a really prickly stem. So just be careful. I'm gonna have to be careful handling this plant. But I noticed the other day, oh, it fell off. Look, I guess it didn't get pollinated. There's a little spaghetti squash there that fell off. I just noticed that I do have one more female spaghetti squash. So the females are starting to pop up. So I'll have to pay a little more attention and come out here and make sure that they get pollinated. So I'm gonna end my video with a fail. Not really the greatest thing to end a video with, but if you made it this far, it might be a lesson for you, because it's definitely a lesson for me. If you look down here on this bed is the bed that I harvested potatoes and onions from a couple weeks ago, I guess about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I decided to take some grocery store potatoes that were starting to root, they were starting to chit. So I figured I would stick 4 little potatoes in here, let them finish rooting, and dig them up later and cut them up and make a whole new golden potato. I think these were Yukon Golds. Make another little potato bed for a quick 3-month harvest. That did not work out. Last week's torrential rains changed that story for me, and I just dug these up to see how they were doing, and they are all rotten and disgusting, and I'm gonna have to go wash my hands after this because they stink. So in the compost they go, and back to square one on this bed, because I don't want it to stay empty. I may put some bush beans in here. I don't know. I'm gonna put something quick growing in here. I have some radishes. I haven't planted any radishes this year, but I'm gonna plant something that's gonna be quick growing, just to keep something growing in this garden bed until August, when I'm gonna come in with some more tomatoes. So if you enjoyed this video, or if you learned anything, please like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I've had a couple new subscribers the last couple weeks. I really appreciate you watching my videos, and hopefully you learn something with me, because I'm certainly not a professional, but I really enjoy gardening, and I'm really learning a lot from the garden, as well as just being able to relax and enjoy the harvest and enjoy watching everything grow, because most of everything that I grow from seed. I do buy some transplants here and there, but most of the stuff that I have been able to watch grow from seed and form into a productive plant. And that is the best thing to watch. So enjoy your day, enjoy your week, and keep growing.